Lake Malawi, also known as Lake Nyasa by our neighbors, is one of Africa's largest and most stunning freshwater lakes. But beneath its beauty lies a storm of tension, history, and territorial dispute. Malawi says it owns the entire lake, but Tanzania claims part of it too. This conflict has lasted for decades, and today we're asking a serious question. Why does Tanzania want Lake Malawi? Who truly owns it? And most importantly, could this end in war or in peace? We're diving deep into the history, politics, and people behind this long-standing border dispute. From colonial maps to modern-day diplomacy, this is the story of one of Africa's most contested natural treasures, Lake Malawi. If you're passionate about African history, geopolitics, or just want to learn something new, you're in the right place. Please subscribe if you're returning. Thank you so much for your continued support. Don't forget to like, comment, and share this video to help others learn too. Now, let's dive in. Lake Malawi is the third largest lake in Africa, stretching majestically across Malawi, Mozambique, and Tanzania. For millions of Malawians, this lake is far more than just a body of water. It's a lifeline. It provides clean water, a rich source of fish for food, vital routes for transportation, boosts the economy through tourism, and plays a key role in electricity generation through hydropower. What truly sets Lake Malawi apart is its incredible biodiversity. It is home to more species of fish than any other lake on Earth, including the globally renowned cichlids, many of which are found nowhere else. This makes the lake not only an ecological treasure, but a hotspot for scientific research and global conservation efforts. But beyond its natural beauty and ecological importance, Lake Malawi is also rich in untapped natural resources. Beneath its waters lie valuable oil and gas reserves, which have attracted international interest. This makes the lake not just environmentally and culturally important, but also economically and strategically significant, especially in a region where energy resources are highly sought after. This combination of natural wealth, ecological importance, and geopolitical relevance has turned Lake Malawi into more than just a lake. It's a symbol of national pride, political tension, and regional ambition.
If between Malawi and her neighbors, whether to the north, to the south, to the east, to the west, has any just territorial claim on any of her neighbors, that country is Malawi, not Tanzania, not any other. Why? I repeat, Mbeya, Njombe, Songea belong here.
Malawi's position is clear and unwavering. The entire lake belongs to Malawi. This claim is rooted in a colonial-era agreement known as the Heligoland Treaty of 1890, signed between Britain and Germany. According to this treaty, all waters to the east of the Tanzanian shoreline were designated to fall under the control of the British Protectorate of Nyasaland, which would later become independent Malawi in 1964. The British interpretation of the treaty gave Malawi full ownership of the lake, with the border running along the Tanzanian shore, not down the middle. This boundary has been recognized by Malawi ever since. After gaining independence, Malawi inherited these colonial borders under the principle of uti possidetis juris, a legal doctrine in international law that upholds inherited colonial borders for newly independent nations. Malawi maintains that this agreement is still valid, and therefore it legally owns the entire lake, excluding the Mozambican portion to the south. Malawi's stance has been consistently backed by official government policy, historical usage, and legal continuity. The country uses the lake extensively for fishing, transport, defense, and tourism, and it sees any challenge to this sovereignty as a threat to its national identity and economic stability. Tanzania believes that the lake should be shared equally between neighboring countries, just like other large lakes in Africa, such as Lake Victoria, which is shared by Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania. From Tanzania's perspective, it is only fair that countries bordering the lake each have access to part of it, especially those who rely on it for fishing, transport, and local livelihoods. Their main legal foundation comes from modern international law, particularly the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS. This convention promotes the idea that lakes bordered by multiple countries should be divided along a median line, a halfway point between the two shores. Tanzania argues that this principle ensures equity and peaceful coexistence between nations. Moreover, Tanzanian leaders see colonial treaties, like the 1890 Heligoland Agreement, as outdated relics of a time when African voices were not considered. They argue that such treaties were made without the consent of the African people and should not define the borders of modern African nations. To them, continuing to enforce these colonial boundaries goes against the spirit of Pan-Africanism, regional integration, and modern-day justice. Tanzania also points out that local communities on their side of the lake depend on it daily for food, income, and culture. Denying them access to the waters, they say, creates unnecessary tension and inequality. In short, Tanzania wants a fair, shared solution, rooted in modern international law, African cooperation, and mutual respect, not colonial-era deals made by foreign empires over a century ago. The Heligoland Treaty, signed in 1890, was a colonial-era agreement between two European powers, Britain and Germany, during the intense land-grabbing period known as the Scramble for Africa. Under this treaty, Germany recognized British control over Lake Malawi, then called Lake Nyasa, while Britain acknowledged German control of Tanganyika, which is now part of mainland Tanzania. This was essentially a political trade-off, with no African voices at the negotiation table. At the time, African lands were being divided and claimed by European empires as if they were empty territories, with little or no regard for the people who actually lived there. The borders drawn in European capitals would later shape the map of modern Africa, often creating conflicts that continue to this day. Critics argue that the Heligoland Treaty lacked legitimacy because it was made without consulting local African leaders, kingdoms, or tribal communities who had lived along the shores of Lake Malawi for generations. Because of this, many believe the treaty should not be used to settle modern territorial disputes. In today's context, the treaty is controversial. Malawi views it as a legal foundation for its claim over the entire lake. Tanzania sees it as a colonial injustice that should be re-evaluated in the spirit of modern diplomacy and African unity. The Heligoland Treaty remains at the heart of the Lake Malawi border dispute, a 130-year-old agreement still influencing African geopolitics in the 21st century. Even the name of the lake reveals how deep this dispute runs. In Malawi, it's proudly called Lake Malawi, a national symbol tied to identity, pride, and sovereignty. But in Tanzania, the same body of water is still officially known as Lake Nyasa, a name inherited from the colonial era. This difference isn't just about language, it's about power, history, and perspective. The name Lake Nyasa was used by early European explorers and later adopted during German colonial rule in what is now Tanzania. After independence, Malawi chose to rename it Lake Malawi, aligning it with the country's name and asserting full ownership. On the other hand, Tanzania's continued use of Lake Nyasa signals a refusal to accept Malawi's claim to sole ownership. In many ways, the two names represent two competing narratives, one rooted in post-independence identity, the other in shared access and historical disagreement. So, while it may seem like a small detail, the name of the lake is a powerful symbol of the larger conflict, showing how even geography becomes political, and how the battle over borders is also a battle over language, memory, and meaning. Beneath the calm surface of Lake Malawi lies something that raises the stakes even higher: untapped oil and gas reserves. Geological studies suggest that the northern part of the lake, especially closer to the Tanzanian shore, could be rich in valuable hydrocarbons. In recent years, the Malawian government issued exploration licenses to foreign companies, sparking outrage from Tanzania, which views this move as premature and a direct challenge to their claim over part of the lake. For both countries, the potential oil discovery transforms this dispute from a border issue into a high-stakes resource battle. But oil isn't the only prize. The lake is a lifeline for millions of people. Its waters are home to more than 700 species of fish, making it one of the most biodiverse freshwater lakes on Earth. For local communities, especially in Malawi, fish from Lake Malawi provide daily food, jobs, and income. Beyond fishing, the lake also helps power Malawi's national grid through hydroelectric generation, making it essential not just for survival, but for economic development and energy security. In short, Lake Malawi is more than a border. It's a strategic national asset, vital for food, energy, income, and potential wealth. This is why control over the lake is not just symbolic. It's economic, political, and deeply personal for those who live along its shores. Over the years, the Lake Malawi dispute has repeatedly resurfaced in political speeches, diplomatic meetings, and even public protests. Leaders from both Malawi and Tanzania have addressed the issue, each defending their country's stance with strong conviction. On Malawi's side, both past and present governments have remained consistent. From the days of Dr. Hastings Kamuzu Banda to modern presidents like Dr. Lazarus Chakwera, the message has been clear. The entire lake belongs to Malawi, as per international law and colonial agreements. They view any claim to the contrary as a violation of national sovereignty and a potential threat to the country's natural resources, economy, and identity. On the other hand, Tanzanian leaders have repeatedly called for a shared solution, proposing a revised border agreement based on modern international law. They argue that joint ownership would reflect fairness and regional cooperation. For them, this is about access and equality, not aggression. Despite both countries using diplomatic language, the tone has remained firm. Neither side is willing to back down, and no concrete agreement has been reached, even after years of quiet negotiations and regional mediation efforts, including attempts by the Southern African Development Community, SADC, and African Union. This standoff has remained peaceful so far, but the deeper issues, national pride, economic interests, and historical wounds, make the dispute one of the most delicate diplomatic tensions in southern Africa. As tensions around Lake Malawi have simmered over the years, regional and continental bodies have stepped in to promote peaceful dialogue and prevent escalation. The Southern African Development Community, SADC, and the African Union, AU, have both played a role in urging restraint and diplomacy. Both organizations have made it clear, this dispute must be resolved through peaceful negotiations, not conflict. SADC has called on Malawi and Tanzania to engage in bilateral talks and to uphold regional stability by avoiding military activity, provocative language, or any form of economic retaliation. Similarly, the African Union has emphasized the importance of respecting existing borders while promoting African unity and mutual respect. However, it's important to note that neither body has taken an official position in favor of either country. Instead, both have chosen to remain neutral, focusing on facilitating conversation rather than declaring a winner. Their main priority is to avoid regional instability and preserve long-standing relationships between two friendly nations. Despite multiple mediation attempts and high-level meetings, a lasting solution has not yet been reached. But the involvement of SADC and the AU has helped keep the situation calm and diplomatic, at least for now. This shows how important regional leadership is in maintaining peace, even when national interests collide. The dispute over Lake Malawi hasn't just been about maps and legal documents. It has at times come dangerously close to conflict. In 2012, tensions escalated when Malawi granted oil exploration rights to a foreign company. Tanzania reacted strongly, launching military patrols along its lakeshore and calling for Malawi to suspend all oil-related activity in disputed waters. For a moment, the region held its breath. Was war possible between two longtime neighbors? Thankfully, both governments chose diplomacy over confrontation. Emergency talks were held, and both sides agreed to pull back from the brink. Since then, dialogue has replaced threats, and the focus has shifted to peaceful negotiation. But despite the calm surface, the tension hasn't disappeared. With the increasing value of oil and gas, growing economic pressures, and national pride on the line, many analysts warn that if diplomacy breaks down again, the risk of conflict could quickly return. Will Malawi and Tanzania find a lasting diplomatic solution? Or will the lake's rich resources push the region into a dangerous standoff? The future of peace in southern Africa may very well depend on what happens next. This isn't just a dispute between governments, it's deeply personal for the people. For many Malawians, Lake Malawi is more than just water. It's a symbol of identity, pride, and sovereignty. Generations have grown up beside it. Families fish it, worship near it, and see it as an inseparable part of Malawi's history and soul. One Malawian elder told us, "We were born with this lake, and we will die with it. It is ours." But across the water, in Tanzania, the story feels very different. Tanzanian citizens, especially those living near the lakeshore, feel excluded. They say they've always depended on the lake too. For water, fishing, and survival, many Tanzanians argue, why can't we share it? The lake should unite us, not divide us. What we see is two nations, two peoples with a shared lake, but divided by politics. And the people, who depend on the lake every day, are the ones caught in the middle, torn between national pride and the hope for regional unity. When it comes to international law, there are two key interpretations, and each country leans on a different one to support its claim. Respect for colonial-era boundaries, Malawi's position. Malawi argues that international law upholds uti possidetis juris, a principle that says newly independent countries should retain the colonial borders they inherited. This principle has been recognized across Africa to avoid redrawing maps and risking conflict. So, Malawi insists that the 1890 Heligoland Treaty, which gave the entire lake to British-controlled Nyasaland, now Malawi, is still valid under this legal rule. Median line principle, Tanzania's position. Tanzania points to modern legal frameworks like the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS, which promotes the idea that shared water bodies should be divided along an equidistant or median line. This means each country bordering the lake would control up to halfway from their shore, making the lake a shared resource, not one nation's property. In the end, international law offers no simple answer. It depends on which legal principle is followed and how both nations interpret their rights. The path forward will depend on negotiation, diplomacy, and mutual respect. So, why did Tanzania claim part of our lake? It's not just about water, it's about history, law, resources, and identity. A colonial treaty, modern international law, oil beneath the waves, and the pride of two nations. It all makes this one of Africa's most emotional border debates. But while Lake Malawi may divide us on the map, it has the power to unite us in reality. If we choose peace over pride, dialogue over division, and cooperation over conflict. What do you think? Should Malawi stand firm and defend its historical claim? Should the lake be shared for the sake of peace and regional development? Or should history decide the future? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear from both Malawians and Tanzanians. Let's talk, not fight. Share this video if you believe that Africans should solve African problems with unity and wisdom. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell for more real African stories, untold history, and deep conversations that matter. Together, let's rewrite the future. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe.